All right, cool. I think we're live. I'm not really sure. Oh yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're
Lauren,
good.
it's a really great to have you on the podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Behind the Food podcast. I'm not joined by Daniel again today because he's stuck at the health department. Um,
Oh
so I,
no.
yeah, it's not great. It's like going to the DMV, but worse.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll be doing this one alone with you, Lauren. I'm really excited to do this interview. One, because I I think I reached out to you probably like 2 months ago, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to
Yeah.
come on the podcast?" Or you may have reached out to me,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Yeah," when like something's more relevant. And then you
Yeah.
reached back out to me and actually were like, "Yeah, so something's more relevant. Would you like me to come on?" And I was like, "Yes, I would." So super
Yeah.
happy to have you here. Um, I usually start these interviews out with, you know, why did you get into like consumer goods in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to sell food? It's incredibly
Yeah.
hard, and
It is.
I'm always
It
super
is.
interested in like how somebody got like into it because usually it's by
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah, so I was working in tech in San Francisco. I've always loved like tangible products. So I've always tried to avoid like the software side, and I was always kind of on the hardware side. I don't know, I just like being able to like touch and feel and experience a product, like no matter what it is. And I went plant-based and I started doing a lot of vegan baking. I was still working in tech. And that's sort of how I got my start. Like I was just baking for friends and family. I didn't realize this could become a business until I started getting some orders from corporate cafeterias, and it kind of just grew from there. But really, it was my own kind of like health journey and my love of baking that got me into CPG.
Makes a lot of sense. It's a very common story. So where were you working
It
at
is,
before
yeah.
you like? Well, when you started that, where were you working?
I was working at Solar City, which eventually kind of got acquired by Tesla. It was like an Elon Musk company. And then after that, I was working at a commercial energy storage and software company called STEM for 5 years. So yeah, it's
That's
completely
cool.
different. Yeah.
A whole bunch of stuff with solar energy and then food.
Yes. Yes. Completely different.
That's
So
cool.
yeah.
So when you like, what led you to like be like, hey, I'm gonna quit my job and like actually like do this as like a business, like do this for a living? Because I mean, like working in tech and like doing those things must be really exciting. I'm
Yeah,
sure it also like pays well, like consistently.
it did.
What
Yeah.
made you want to become a founder?
You know, my mom had a small business and so did my grandfather. So I always wanted to start my own business. I just like wasn't sure what that would be. I honestly thought it would be in my old industry. And I think, I was looking for honestly like a lot of other people, I was looking for a change and I was like ready. I didn't have kids at the time and I was ready to take a risk and it seemed like fun and exciting at the time. And now like hindsight is 2020. I'm definitely a lot more eyes wide open, but also don't want to discourage people from starting businesses because it's definitely a fun ride. So
Dude, I totally agree. I think like my main thing these days is like trying to encourage people to like pursue entrepreneurship because we're entering a world where it's going to matter so much more in my
yeah,
minds. And like as the disruption from AI like begins to happen and as it
yeah,
becomes like more apparent that like if you have ownership over a thing, that's a lot more powerful. Or like if you have 10,000 customers, they're not all going to fire you at the same time because they've replaced you with artificial intelligence, most likely.
yeah.
Um, Unless you're
Well,
running a software company. Uh,
yeah, I would not want to be in SaaS right now, that's for sure.
no, no. But for most other businesses, it's like your customers aren't just going to like not show up tomorrow. So I think it is like, it's weird thinking about it this way, but it feels like less risky to someone like me.
Yeah,
I might be biased. You might also be biased, but like it seems like it's something that is a little bit more stable like 5 or 10 years from now than like the traditional job that may or may not exist. Um, do you have like thoughts around that? Like when it comes to like entrepreneurship though, when it comes to like encouraging people, like you said, you don't want to discourage people from starting businesses. Is that something that you like actively encourage your friends to do?
yeah. I told someone the other day she should start a business. So I have a little bit of a contrarian viewpoint on this. I right now there's a couple of companies doing this. Like in my network have invested in the company. I have not, but I know people that have invested in these types of companies. But like basically, so I think that what's eventually going to happen is like the AI agents are going to start brands, and they're going to start like many at once. They're going to throw it at retail or, whatever distribution channels, and they're going to see what sticks and, kill what doesn't, essentially. Like there'll probably be like KPIs around velocities and things like that. I think we're far enough away from that you can still be an entrepreneur today in CPG. I question if that's going to be true in the future, even like 5 years from now. Because like right now as entrepreneurs, like what we're doing, it's like everyone has a similar story to mine. Like when I started Love and Shoe, it's because, I went plant-based and I love baking and I wanted to bring my product to others, right? And I'm sure you guys had a similar story. We're essentially kind of like throwing stuff at the wall, like we're
Yeah.
coming up with this product and we like it and our friends and family like it, and we're throwing it up against the wall. We're scaling it to 5,000 doors or whatever, and we're seeing if consumers like it. And it's not even just about consumers liking the product. It has to be in the right packaging at the right price, at the right distribution, right? So there's a more efficient way to do that. And I think that AI will be able to do that. And also, AI doesn't have the emotion. Like there's so many times over the years, I'm sure you felt the same way, where like, you have to make a hard decision and you just don't want to make it, right? Because like you're tied to like the specific idea of like what the company should sell, or you're emotionally involved or invested with a certain employee and you should fire them, things like that. Like AI is going to be able to make that decision, no problem.
You were so right about that. And also what you just said, like what you described at the beginning, is not something I haven't necessarily thought about. I guess the question I would pose to you is like, but where do the resources come from? Because like if I was to spin up, because I could in theory do this today, right? Like I could, if you were good enough at product development, I could spin up, especially with the help of AI.
You
It's
could
so
do it. You
bad.
could do it today
You
with
could
Claude
spin up
Code.
like
Like,
30 brands, all the
yep,
branding, all the websites, launch an MVP test. But you have to have inventory. You have to have like a physical place
yeah,
you're making all of the stuff.
yeah.
So like, what do you envision the back end of that being? Or like, do you think that that means like the boring business jobs, like the co-man or like the 3PL or whoever, like those things like become like even stickier? And the
Well,
brands are
that's,
the thing that gets disrupted?
yeah. So, okay, I am actually working on a new brand and I
Ooh,
am
that's
using
exciting.
AI a lot to come. And that, to your point, the part that is difficult and is slower than I would like it to be is the part with humans involved. So you're right, the 3PL, the co-man, the distributor, like, sourcing materials,
The
etc.
physical world, that
The
it is the
physical
biggest
world.
pain in the
Yes.
ass. That
Yes.
physical supply chain actually right now is also the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
Because we shut our CPG business down for a period of time and then reactivated it with a new distributor. And I had forgotten, oh, like it takes a really long time for the distributor to like code the items. It takes a
Yeah.
really long time for like the co-man to be like, yeah, we're gonna run a trial run, then we're gonna run a slightly larger run, and then we're gonna like make
Yeah.
sure we can like do this thing. And then you want to source things from like wherever. Like we get packaging occasionally from like Turkey. There's like a plant in Turkey that
Right.
ships us like packaging for cookie dough, and I have to wait for like a container to arrive and like do the thing. Right? It's like all that
Yeah.
stuff is still slow, even though
Well,
like the
there
brand side of it's fast.
there are people working on this problem. So like, for example, raw materials. And look, I have not tried this myself, but there's this company called Oply. And so like their
Hey,
concept
use
is like,
Oply.
oh, you do?
Oply's great.
Okay. Oh,
I'm a
you do. Okay.
big
Amazing.
proponent of Oply.
Okay.
I
Okay. I'm looking
introduced
into it.
you should use it. I introduced Christina from Willows to Oply, and she just started
Okay.
using them.
That's so
I'm not
funny, eh?
advertising for Oply on this podcast, but hey, if they want to pay me, they can. So,
Yeah, no, I want to try. I want
we
to try
are.
because I think it's an interesting concept, like consolidating buying. And then my understanding is they add a margin on top of raw materials, but like the end user ends up getting a cheaper price than buying in a silo. I mean, this is why we see the consolidation of brands that's happening so much recently, right? So you can consolidate buying and manufacturing and you get those efficiencies. Because at some point, like I feel like it doesn't make sense to be running just a singular brand in CPG. I don't know what your
It
thoughts are on
definitely
that.
doesn't. No, I completely agree with you. So, if I was still all in on like where if I was still where I was at in March of like 2024, 25, prior to
Yeah.
like us doing our eighth pivot, I'm not really sure what it was.
Yeah, yeah,
And to
yeah.
your point
Yeah.
earlier, like as founders, like really, you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier, where it was like, um, we're just trying to like figure out like product, price, packaging, like channel, like where is this going to work, this specific
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
And I've pivoted no baked around from like we were a restaurant company and then the pandemic happens and then we do CPG and then like all these different things happen, right? And they cause you to like react and then pivot. To your point, like AI definitely can do that faster than I can in my brain,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
I think there's still the resource problem of like doing a bunch of different stuff at once, but maybe it understands the concept of making smaller bets faster than like a
Yeah.
human would, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, like if I go back to where I was at though, like back to my earlier point, we were in the process of buying a couple other brands in our space and we were going to consolidate them under our plant, going about the same things like kind of the same way you're thinking of it, where it's like you achieve this insane scale for manufacturing in-house as long as you have enough brands and have enough like streamlined product. And it's not talked about enough, but I looked at the P&Ls of those brands and then I was producing my own product, very similar recipe. Um, and I saw what their cogs were and I saw what mine were.
Yeah.
And you can draw the line to be like, oh, like all we have to do is like buy it, make it ourselves, and suddenly we're profitable.
Yeah.
That's wild. But again, like to that point, like it's really, really hard to achieve that kind of scale without like multiple brands. Like we would have had to produce, and this means like nothing to anyone because it's kind of complicated. I guess like pounds would be better, and I don't know what the poundage was, but we'd have to produce like $10 million of product a year through like a
Yeah. I mean,
plant for
10
it to
million
like
is
suddenly
sort
make
of,
sense.
yeah, 10 million. I mean, there's a reason why like private equity does not touch brands under 10 million. It's sort of like the
Yeah.
turning point in general. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's where like you find like extreme scale, and I mean if you're really really scrappy about it, you probably could pump out like really profitable. You could have a really profitable business at like five, but
It depends on
you'd
the
have to be
channel
really
mix.
efficient. Yeah,
Yeah. Like you could not be in, I mean, look, I want to caveat, it depends on the category, it depends on the product cogs, et cetera. But
there could be
I think
someone
it'd
out
be
there
very
making stuff in the
difficult.
kitchen and they're making like a bunch of money and they're doing $700,000 in sales. So I'm not
So
gonna
I met,
not gonna
yeah,
say
no,
it's impossible.
I met this guy, and I don't know if he still is Costco's like main supplier of salsa, but it's white label, one customer. And look, there's a problem with running a business with just one customer.
There's a lot of risk there.
There's a lot of risk, but whatever. He has white label product that he sells, just one SKU, and it's just him, right? And it's a co-packed product, and it apparently is super profitable. I don't know.
I'm sure it's
Like you
super
hear these edge
profitable.
cases, right?
Honestly, there's an edge case for everything, and at the end of the day, like all we are doing is like you make item for $2, you sell it for four, and
Yeah.
if you can't make money, you might be bad at math. But
Yeah.
like there's a lot of caveats to that too.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so did you guys pull out of like natural retail distribution? Yeah.
Well, we did that, and it was like very thoughtful. Like I wanted to change the way I was like running my life. And I think a lot of other
Yeah.
founders may start to feel similar to how I did. Instead of buying those brands, instead of scaling our plant, I woke up one day. Our third daughter was born in March of last
Oh,
year.
congratulations. Oh, okay. I just had a third last July. So,
That's awesome. Yeah. So
yeah.
our kids are probably they're like about the same
Yeah.
age. They'll be in the
Yeah.
same graduating class.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we had her. Megan took maternity leave for the first time ever, and I said to myself, I don't want to live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. By the way, we lived in Nashville. Like our plant was in Chattanooga, so I would drive
Okay,
2.5
gotcha.
hours,
Wow.
be in Chattanooga for like 3 or 4 days, and then come back. And I wasn't seeing my
Wow.
kids. I wasn't enjoying my life. I wasn't seeing my friends. Which again, like as a founder, I've gone through many periods of time where I didn't see my friends, family. That's pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
I just realized like at 36 was I 32? I was 31. So like 31 years old, I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I've been doing this since I was 23. This thing that feels like a wheel for no reason. And it was all in the
Yeah.
name of like an exit. Like, oh, well, we have to scale to get
Yeah.
an exit. And if we don't,
That's what a lot of
then
people say in the industry. It's crazy.
yeah. But it's
Yeah.
silly because to your point, like there are a lot of other different ways to like run a brand. There are a lot of other different ways to like do things. I don't know. We scaled. We left natural distribution because it was very expensive. We weren't making money. We had other
Yeah.
parts of our business that were making money. And I woke up one day and realized, well, if I sell my house and like reorganize the way that we're doing things, we can make money and work like 5 hours a
Yeah.
week. So why
Yeah.
why are we like working 80 hours a week each and like not making any money? We were losing money. So it
Yeah.
was like a very weird thing to like reorganize in your brain. Yeah, I mean, like it,
Very similar recently
I
too.
know you did, and I'd love to hear about it. That's kind of what I'm teeing this up for. So I've read your LinkedIn post, which I thought was awesome.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I I kind of want to understand like what made you make the decisions. And for those of you that don't know, Lauren decided to like reorganize how she was doing things. I would love you to tell the story, not me. So please elaborate on your LinkedIn post that you made about how you were
Yeah.
changing it up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so we made the decision to pull out of retail entirely. To be honest, it was a very difficult decision because I think I was buying into that same mentality that you were mentioning. It's like grow and scale as much as possible. Like door count is what matters. And, it's just you're kind of like on this hamster wheel because like what people don't talk about is like once you get into grocery, like getting into grocery is like the first step. Like you need to protect your shelf space. And we had 5 SKUs at like one of the most sought after retailers. Like every natural products entrepreneur wants to be on the store shelves. And like we quickly kind of realized like it's just not what it was cracked up to be. At the end of the day, it was just really hard to make money, and it's not, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus because it's not one particular entity's fault. It's really the system at the end of the day. And everyone's sort of playing a different part in the system. And you really have to look at kind of, what are people's like motivations at the end of the day. And honestly, their motivations are against small brands. And
Yeah.
that's a tough
What do you
pill to
think?
swallow.
What do you think is like wrong specifically like with the system of how retail works
Yeah.
that like hurts small brands?
Well, okay, so the first problem is, and again, this is not one particular retailer, this is like many
It's the
retailers
system. It's like the whole
in
it's the
general.
culture and everything, right?
Yes, yes, I'm not singling out one. It's and I'm not including club. So like Costco, BJ's, PriceSmart, etc. Like they're a different bucket. Like I don't consider them to be grocery retail. I consider them to be club, and they just engage differently and have a different business model. So with retail, the way that they interact with distributors is that they've essentially squeezed distributors to pay the lowest margin possible, right? And probably part of that is so they can offer their customers a better price, but then, you obviously like increase their profit margin, like at the end of the day, like that's just the reality of it. So that being said, it is very difficult for a distributor to be making money off of like, 10%, like 12%, et cetera, margin, right? Like they're running trucks, they're maintaining warehouses. It's a very employee
And
heavy industry.
yeah, and to that point, like if anyone's curious about like how hard it is, go look at Unify's P&L. It's public.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that being said, they need to search out different revenue streams. And so there's a bunch of different ways to do that. So like one of them is marketing, like you can pay, the distributors for like an online ad or an email blast or whatever, right? For like some crazy price, like $5,000,
Yeah.
So that's one way. Another way is chargebacks. And I can go as deep as you want in chargebacks. I always think it's
Please,
boring to
please
other
do.
people. I mean, so the problem with chargebacks is like essentially what happens is like, let's say, a distributor owes you $20,000, right? So instead of paying you the $20,000, they're taking that amount off your check. So you're essentially getting the net amount. So often what would happen to us is the distributor would owe us $20,000. We would get cut a check for $2,000. And as a brand where you have payroll, you have inventory, you have all these different costs, like you have G&A, like how are you supposed to manage that when you only get $2,000 out of $20,000?
Yeah, it's basically impossible. And if you go in deep to like what those chargebacks are, a lot of the times they're nonsense. A lot of the times you have to fight them. So then the brand has to spend more money on payroll fighting fake chargebacks, which is hilarious. And then I've onboarded with some distributors over the years that have fees to dispute chargebacks, which is also hilarious. So if they
Yeah,
charge you
yeah,
back and they were wrong,
yes. My Yeah. Well, okay. And so like there's basically a key of chargebacks. There's like hundreds of chargebacks. They assign like a random number letter mix, right? So they make it very opaque, right? So you have to like figure out what chargeback it is. But my favorite chargeback, and I shouldn't say it favorite because my team hates this chargeback, but it always hit us. It no matter what, it always hit us. They like we when we'd ship by the case or even by the pallet into whatever DC, like let's say we ship 60 cases, like clockwork, they would say, sorry, we only got 45. We got charged
yes.
back. And we're like, and so it got to the point where we were like taking pictures of the cases and the pallets. And then every single time, like we had the physical proof, like we'd get paid back. But the problem is the cash conversion cycle, right? Because they would take over 6 months to pay us back. And
Yeah.
so it's essentially bleeding small brands dry. And like the thing that people aren't talking about enough is like it's easier than ever to start a CPG brand, just like with all the resources, co-packing, AI, all these things. But like the industry will kill you. There's
Yeah.
a good likelihood, there's a good probability that the industry might kill you. And that's what people don't talk about. Like it will
Yeah. And
bleed you dry.
I
It's a death
also,
by 1,000 cuts.
dude, for sure, death by a thousand cuts. And I love that you highlighted the fact that like it is like a systematic problem, like it's a systemic problem. It's not a problem with one specific distributor or one specific brand or one specific retailer. It is the entire like culture of the system. And I would add to what you're saying is just add in like every service provider on planet Earth. I have friends that are like brokers. I have friends that like do R&D. I don't think
Yep.
those people are bad, but what I do think is that the founder gets into the industry, and this is not specific just to CPG, by the way, because in tech there are like essentially agencies that will like become your like dev staff, and they'll
Yep.
do the same thing that like a broker or a consultant or an R&D. Actually, it's probably more similar to R&D for like food, where like, oh yeah, we'll build this thing that you want to build, we'll charge you a bunch of money. They are looking out for themselves at the end of the day. And same thing with like the broker, I'm going to take my cut and everyone else. And
Right.
then you layer that on top of this world where the problem you just described is true, which is the distributors get squeezed by the retailer gets squeezed by the customer, they're squeezed by the customer because they're being squeezed by typically Walmart or Amazon. And then
Yep.
that's going to flow down the chain all the way back to the person at the very end, which is the brand. And we don't have the power as brands to squeeze our suppliers. So like
No.
it ends up
No.
smashing you, and then like all the service providers that you have to pay, you probably don't, but like it's if you were a new founder and you got into CPG and you had never worked in it before, you would hire a broker too. You'd hire
Right.
5 different ones and you'd roll through them and pay them a retainer and be confused why you're not in Kroger. And it would just be the same thing that everybody else goes through, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And
okay,
all
so
those
I
things
yeah.
add up to a lot of problems.
Yeah, so my thoughts on service, and I'm with you on service providers, like I have a couple of great ones, but in general, I think you have to be careful, right? Because you can burn cash easily that way. I like to give service providers a 90-day test, right? I feel in most cases, like if they haven't accomplished something or they're like on the road to accomplishing something, then this is probably not going to work out. Now you could say like, look, category reviews are once a year, etc. I mean, in that case, like I think you need to negotiate the retainer with the broker. Like you should not be spending like a 5K a month retainer for retail unless you have a ton of cash to burn, of course. And the category review is once a year, meaning the buyer reviews your category. So my category is protein bars or cookies once a year, right? Because you're paying that until the category review, and then it takes several months for the buyer to make their decision. So you're paying 5K a month for like, I don't know, over a year potentially, depending on where you fall in
And
the
it doesn't
cycle.
really, yeah, and it doesn't really make any sense, does it? Because it's like you guys
No.
are really just making an intro, and then the founder's going to pitch anyways, not the
Yeah.
broker. And yeah, it ends up being a thing where it's like, yeah, paying a retainer is kind of silly.
Yeah.
Paying someone
Yeah.
commission to do, again, that's kind of why I like Club too, because like a lot of the brokers I've like interacted with around Club, to your point, not only do I like Costco and Sam's Club and like the like, but um the brokers and service providers that work in the industry as well typically work on commission only, and they're like really, really
Exactly.
open and honest about like what is happening. They're like, hey, so we're gonna pitch it and it may not work and it may work, but we'll see. And like
Yeah.
we'll at least like set you up for success.
Yeah.
I
Well, you
that's a
actually
better
do
way of doing
upfront
things in my
work.
mind.
I actually do think it's worth paying a Costco broker, especially if you don't know what you're doing, because like you have to create a
Oh, for sure.
special pack size, and there's just specifications for that channel, and it's just different than other channels. So I think like the Costco broker, typically if you're not in Club at all, like they're actually doing a bunch of work, and I think people
Yeah.
obviously should get paid if they're working. So you know what I mean? So
Yes.
I'm like cool with it. But yeah, I mean, this is why I love Club, but there's problems with Club too. Like you can't have it more than 15% of your total overall business, and it operates on an in and out model. So like you get a rotation, they see what your sales are, and if they're not great, you might not get another rotation, and that has implications for your operations. And it's a lot of volume at once, and it's a huge revenue hit, but you have to be prepared for not getting that next rotation. So
Yeah. And most likely you probably won't. Like if you're a small brand, they have to create newness in their store, and they only can do that by rotating products.
yes and no. It depends. If you have like a trend-based product, like if you're selling like adaptogens right now, like you're probably not getting into Costco. But if you're selling, like, I actually think your product like is not really, I don't know, do you think your product's a trend-based product?
It was at one point, like, but that
Okay.
was almost 8 years ago now. I wish it was trendy still. Um, I wish so deeply, Lauren, that I was still on trend. But yeah, to your point, like, I mean, right now, if you're like a meat snack brand, like getting into Costco is very easy.
Yeah.
And will they all stay? No, but they'll some of them will for sure, right?
Yeah,
Like
some of them will. I
they'll
agree.
find things that definitely like work and stick, and they'll keep those. And it's possible to be in Club like consistently. You're right, but I think like for the most part, as a small brand, you should kind of like prepare yourself to be a small brand, which is like unless you break the mold and like you really resonate with like the culture, you're on trend, like
Yeah.
you're the thing that's happening. Like no, like, it's probably not going to happen over and over again for you every quarter, but it could happen once a year. Like
Okay, so you can rotate between the regions. So Costco buys by
yes,
the region. And look, like my product, like I'm selling
Lauren,
better
you're
for you
finding every
cookies.
single way that you can make it happen. She's like, I can make it happen. We
Well, I so
moved
I
from the southeast to the northeast, and then
I
the
mean,
northeast to the northwest.
that's essentially what we do. So like my
I love
product's like
that.
better for you cookies, right? So like I kind of know, like, look, I don't want to put the energy out there, but like I kind of know that my product is probably not going to be a national like regular product in Costco because it is somewhat niche, right? But
Yeah,
that being said, I can rotate it through the regions. And look, my product does not resonate in like Texas, for example, but it does resonate in the Bay Area and like, like Colorado and regions like that in LA, right? So I can, Costco moves enough volume where you can actually rotate and it can be somewhat regular if you want it to be. So,
yeah. I mean, that's probably like the best way for a brand to think about it too. Like the way that you're thinking about it is you're like, I'm solving a problem for them. I'm also solving a problem for myself, which is that I'd like to be getting Costco POs every 3 months. And at the same time, like I know that you guys want newness. Well, we can create that like regionally.
yeah.
Yeah,
And there's
that's
also
cool.
ways like newness, like do a variety pack, put in a
Yeah.
different flavor, that sort of thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get really mad when I buy products from Costco and then they disappear. And like
Yeah.
I obviously know what's happening, but I'm also just like, please bring back my there's a bone broth thing that I buy. It's like these sticks of bone broth. It's called Bear I can't remember what it's called. It's like Bear Nutrition or something or Bear Broth. I don't know. It's really good. There's
Okay,
like
I haven't seen
collagen and
that.
broth. You put them in like boiling water. Apparently the company is founded way before mine and I like didn't know who they were. And then they had a Costco rotation. Obviously, now I know who they are, and I buy a lot of it. But now I have to
Yeah.
subscribe on their website because I'm just
But
like,
but that's amazing, right? You
here I am.
discovered the product for them, right? Like you
Yeah,
discovered
it's
the
amazing for
product
them.
in Costco and then whatever you're subscribing on Amazon. Like we saw that too. We would see an increase in sales on Amazon after a Costco rotation. So, but obviously the price is
So
not as good versus Costco. you
yeah, no, it's not. It's
know?
not as insulated either. But
Yeah.
Lauren, what is yours as business model moving forward, and like how did you come to the conclusion that like, hey, like retail will probably never be like a good thing for us, like profitability wise.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to do these other things instead, and those are going to allow us to be like, profitable, happy brand. What are you guys?
Yeah. Well, okay. So getting back to kind of like the systemic problem, right? So
Yeah.
it's the distributors, it's the retailers. The other thing I want to mention, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus again, is the big brands. Okay. So when I say big brand, like brands that are doing probably like 75 million or above, right? Like they don't have any reason to say anything or change the system because the system is working for them, right? And it's making it
Yeah.
more difficult for small brands to take shelf space from them. So like you have these three things essentially that are working against you as a small brand, right? Outside of like the typical operational stuff, like,
Yeah.
co-pack, like production, raw materials,
There's
supply chain.
standard startup stuff, standard supply
Right.
chain stuff,
Right.
but
Right.
everybody experiences those.
Yeah. So that being said, like we got our start being like a food service brand because I used to work in tech, and those were some of our early customers. And so we've been selling into food service this whole time. Additionally, we've been selling on Amazon this whole time. And so we've been pursuing channels where like contribution margin is healthy. And honestly, like this is where AI is better than me. I woke up one day and I looked at my P&L and I'm just like, okay, the retail distribution is X percentage of my business. If I deleted it overnight, this would improve my profitability. But not only that, I'd be running a smaller, more profitable business. But also like all of these things have happened since we've left. Like I am so much happier. Like the people at my team is so much happier. Like just we would get these chargebacks. We'd get like $70,000 chargebacks sent to us, just like thrown at us. And I would just be up all night, like thinking about it and freaking out
Yeah.
essentially, and it just created this like level of stress. And now we're selling into like cleaner channels where we have more control over the price. We have a better gross margin. Like we have this one food service customer, they're an airline. And like we're very profitable on it, right? And we ship directly to them. It doesn't go through distribution. It's clean business. Like they pay us what they owe us. There's no chargebacks or games. And I don't know. I'm like much happier. So
I dude, everything you're saying resonates so much with me. Because it's like it's just true that like that is what happens. And like you said it earlier, you're like, yeah, if I deleted this, not only would we become like more profitable, but now I'm running a smaller company that's making more money. That means you're working less in theory. And
I am working a
again,
little bit
in
less.
theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you work a little bit less, things are a little bit smaller, and you actually make more money. And like few people can wrap their head around that. I read The 4 Hour Work Week, which is a very dated book. A
Yeah. I
long
love
time.
that book.
I read
Yeah.
it a long time ago. I think in 2018 or 2019. I proceeded to ignore all of the advice. Right?
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss, specifically for like people that don't know, was like a CPG entrepreneur. Like that's what he was doing, was e-com like before a lot of other people were doing it. And when he describes in the book what he did to get down to a 4-hour work week, because he, like me or like you, was working all the time, trying to grow. And then in the book, he essentially describes this thing that he did where he was like, well, I fired every customer I had, except for the two like largest ones that were like really, really easy to work with. Like they're just,
Yeah.
I guess I can't remember what exactly he was selling. It was like protein
So
powder or something.
my VP of ops always likes to say this. She's always like, the smallest customers are the ones that are such the most hassle.
Yeah, yeah. It just
The
becomes
smallest and least
true over
profitable
time.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like he describes this thing he did in like 2003, or like it had to be like
Yeah.
over 20 years ago. And then the guy goes on like a like world traveling excursion, right? And then he writes a book about
Yeah.
it. Um, I proceeded to ignore all that advice. And I think everyone else does all the time too. And I think it's because again, like we are seeing a world where like people exit their company for like $1 billion. Somebody like does super well. That's awesome. And you don't really see the other stories, which is like 95% of everything else happening,
Yeah.
where like
Yeah.
someone ends up with a zombie company, or they end up in a place where they had to fire sale their brand. I know of someone, I'm not going to name them, that had to fire sale their brand, and they were doing multi-8-figure sales.
Yep.
They sold that brand for pennies to one of those aggregators you were talking about at the beginning of the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and again, like I think about that all the time where I'm like, man, like the amount of value that just kind of evaporated because the story that they were told, the story we're all telling ourselves is like, well, I have to grow. And if I don't grow, this funding round collapses. Like, oh shit, I have to fire sell my brand because like you don't know what else I'm gonna do. That happens to like a lot of founders. That either
Yeah.
that or like we have to close up shop, we have to file bankruptcy. Like when I started doing consumer in 2021 because of the pandemic, or really 2020, we did like D2C and then we moved into grocery. I met a lot of people that became friends of mine. And then I've watched, like, not on purpose, but like I pay attention to like what my friends' brands are doing. And I've made new friends who have like started brands, in the last like couple of years. But
I know what you're gonna
all
say.
of, they're all gone. One of them filed bankruptcy. I know their brand
Yep.
raised, a shit ton of money. And three founders that I still to this day think are like incredible people, they're smarter than me. It seemed like they were working harder than me. And then they post on LinkedIn like, yeah, we had filed bankruptcy, like it's over. And I'm like, what is
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah.
And it just continuously makes me think like, well, what happened is like the culture told them like you must grow. Because like it's hard, you know this. Like it's very, very hard to actually deploy and spend like millions of dollars and do it
Yeah.
in a like intelligent way. And if you're pressured to do it as quickly as possible, growing as fast as you possibly can, you're going to you're gonna run off a cliff, most likely. You also might run off a cliff and have built the airplane already and like soar to the moon, but that's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to be really careful with retail distribution. Like I see it happen all the time with brands. Like they're well funded and, they're launching nationally in Target in year 1. And like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like
Yeah.
again, it comes back to like you may not have the right packaging at the right price and or the right products, right? Like and I think also if you have a product that you have to educate people on, like you need way more marketing spend. Like that's just the reality. And if you're in a category such as frozen or refrigerated or beverage, like you're going to need to raise more money. That's just the reality of
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Sorry. I know you're refrigerated.
Oh no, you're completely you were so right. Like a big part of what happened
Yeah.
to Megan and I and like why we didn't take off the way I thought we would is we got into retail, started experiencing the problems you were describing earlier with your brand. Like,
Yeah.
I get this charge back. I'm like, oh no, like what am I gonna do? There was
Yeah.
actually this one specific Christmas, I think it was 2 or 3 Christmases ago. We had like $500,000 in like receivables and inventory on our balance sheet. And like I had to buy like gifts for my kids or whatever. I go to the store and we realize like, oh, we have no money. Like maybe like I was like, maybe I'm like just not thinking about it. Like maybe I have like a credit card or something with like balance on it. No, no, no. It's
Oh
zero
man.
dollars. And I look at like the balance sheet and I'm like, are we getting paid soon? Like maybe you can look at your receivables. And I'm like, this sucks. And for most people, like most people knew this, but like Megan and I like have paid all of our bills with like no bakes and bootstrapped like throughout the years. So Like the restaurants specifically made a lot more money than like the CPG brand ever did. And still to this day do. And they don't make any money in like December or January. So like
Right. Yeah.
obviously as a dessert shop. So we always are like broke as fuck at the time of year.
Yeah.
And I've been telling myself all year that year, like, yeah, but like CPG sales are going to the moon. They were going crazy. And I was like, we manufacture the product in house. We have crazy margins. What could go wrong? What could go wrong is people just don't pay you like at
Yes.
all. And
Yeah.
then like as a brand that is self-funding, I kept telling myself like, what could possibly go wrong? Well, what could go wrong is like we failed to raise money in 23. I tried to raise a very large round, failed. Rather than like continue to try to raise, I was like, fuck this. Like my company, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm manufacturing it. My margins are insane. I have this other business that's funding it. Like worst thing that could happen is we just like break even, but like I'm fine. And like that's
Yeah.
not at all what happens. What happened is
Yeah.
we burned all the money. Lauren, I would be so rich if I had just stopped going to
Yeah.
any of it. And it's
Yeah.
crazy because I dumped money down the drain, like my own money, for literally like 3 years, saying to myself, like, oh yeah, like we couldn't raise the round, but who cares? We'll just go for it. And now I know like that's just simply not possible. It's like between the chargebacks and the frozen or the refrigerated supply chain and the trade dollars that you have to spend, to your point, when you have a product that
Yeah.
people need to be educated on and you're trying to build velocity and it's not working and retailers are mad and the distributor wants to add dollars and you're just like, what is happening? That
Yeah.
all adds up to you just being like stressed out. And yeah, you need a shitload of money to get to critical mass.
Yeah.
Um,
Death by a thousand cuts.
thousand
But
dollars. Yeah.
but also I just want to point out, and like I talked about this a little bit on my videos on Instagram. So I had some problems that were specific to my brand. So like first of all, like I was in the business of selling singles, which we're getting out of. So like we were selling single size single portion 2-ounce protein cookies in Whole Foods Market. And as
Really
you can
hard.
imagine, it's hard, right? And we're selling it in the protein bar set, but it's hard because there's a max amount of price that a consumer is willing to pay, right? For a
Yeah.
cookie, right? Like even at Whole Foods Market, it's probably like $3.29 a cookie. That's just the reality, even if it has protein in it, right? And then I had a gross margin problem too. So like that's one thing that like entrepreneurs should really look at. Like you really need to be, in my opinion, at a 60 to 70% gross margin to enter retail and be able to have enough money for like marketing and chargebacks and all that stuff. So those are like my two main unique issues with
Dude,
this
to your
channel.
point on the gross margin thing, I tell people this all the time when like they're new and they're like starting out asking me about gross margin. You can
Yeah.
go look at public companies that sell food. There's not
Yeah.
many of them because they own all the brands. Just
Yes.
take a look at their gross margin though on like
Yeah.
their balance sheet. Yes, they have scale. Yes, they have a lot of other things, but I'm here to also
Mhm.
tell people like scale does not change your margins that much. It's not like this enormous hit. You kind of like you
Also,
priced a thing today and then like it's not going to change honestly that much on like the buying side, even if you're doing like $100 million in sales.
I know. And all like the only customer where we saw significant price breaks that really moved the needle was Costco, because like my formulation is basically two main ingredients and we could buy those by the
Yeah.
truckload. Like when you can buy like the unlocks, I feel like are case to pallet, pallet to truckload, right? But
Yeah.
there's like 60 pallets on a truck depending on what you're buying. So like
Yeah.
that's a big, like really the only retailer that can like unlock that immediately is Costco, unless you're stringing together like 10,000 stores or whatever, or you're super fast like
Well,
velocities.
eventually you'll hit truckloads is kind of like my
Yes.
point. And you'll hit them
Right.
quite quickly if you actually think about it. And
Yeah.
these giant public companies are also buying truckloads. Their margins are between 65 and like 75%.
Yeah.
Like just always. And like every quarter you can go look at like Nestle's P&L and it's like, oh, like that's just kind of what they're doing. Go
Yeah.
look at Smucker's P&L, like which is a much smaller conglomerate, honestly. But they're public. You can look at their financials. And I think that like people should ask themselves why. Like, why are
Yeah.
their margins that way? It's because they're pricing it to make sure that their margins are that way. It's not because they have some sort of magic formula that we don't have. And
Right.
sure, they
Well,
might have like a 10% boost on like buying that we don't have, but like that means that like maybe your margins should be like 55% or 50% when you're starting out. not 20%, which
Well, and then
is where people end up.
well, and also like there's another systemic problem. Like Americans are addicted to cheap food, and the percentage of take-home income is like really small compared to Europe. So like Europe spends like 30%, I think, around on like their take-home income on food, right? But it's all like if you eat food in Europe, like it's just different, right? It's like locally
It is.
sourced and it's higher quality and like it's not mass produced and like there's not all these crazy like preservatives and chemicals in it, right? Whereas in the US, like it's cheap, it's mass produced, like it has all these sketchy ingredients, etc., right? So like we sort of have to change like the thought process of like how we approach food, and Americans have to be okay with spending more on food to get a higher quality product. Like that's the reality. So when you say that, like, you know, was it Mondelez you said has 65 to
I think it's like
75%?
I think it's Nestle. Mondelez is probably just two.
Nestle. Well, that doesn't shock me because like their food is priced so low, right?
Yeah.
It's just, anyways, there's a lot of
They are
systemic
finding
problems.
ways to shove cheap ingredients into products to allow them to, the same way that like I have a good friend of mine that is in like meat snacks, and he was the first person that informed me that one way that the large brands, so like the legacy guys, make more money selling like beef jerky is by putting sugar in it. And I was like,
Yeah,
I did not know that, but like the weight of the bag is the weight of the bag. And
right.
so like when you dehydrate meat, it gets very light. And so like them adding like sauces and like sugar and like other stuff to that like beef jerky is their way of actually making it cheaper because it's cheaper than the beef jerky.
Yeah, that
And
makes
it's like the
sense.
percentage of weight changes. And I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
crazy. But also probably happening all over the place with lots of different cheap ingredients because they
Yep.
sell things by weight. So like
Yep.
as long as the percentage of the weight is less the expensive stuff and more the like you can buy flour and sugar for free, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
shove this in it and it'll be fine. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to eat that, but like here we are. Like this is what people want to like buy. To your point, I'm hoping that honestly, like the GLP-1 thing and people becoming more conscious of what they're eating and also more conscious of the inherent problem, which is we eat too much food,
We
period.
do.
Like,
Yeah.
period, full stop. It's like you can look at like average calories per American. It's absurd. When I was training for my Ironman, my Aura ring told me that I was burning 3,500 calories a day on
Oh,
average.
wow. Wow.
And it's like, that's not that much because I think the average American eats like 3,700. It's like that. I think that's
Right.
where it's at. It's so high.
That's
So
a
it's like
lot of calories.
Ironman athlete, someone who's
Yeah.
running all the time and like working out all the time, potentially cannot eat the way that you people are eating. It's like, and by you
Yeah.
people, I mean literally the average, like it's everybody. Mhm.
I
It's
mean,
like,
I
yeah,
think that's
maybe if we
why
all
like
ate less, you could then
GLP-1s.
pay more money for food
Yeah.
that was good and it would all work.
Yeah, I mean, the food is addictive too, right? It's cheap and addictive. And so I think that's
Yes.
why GLP-1s are really catching steam, right? Because it's getting rid of that like food noise that people experience, right? And
Yeah,
I think there is like this whole mental aspect of it that it's really tough to get out of that cycle. So,
dude, it is so tough to get out of that cycle. And I have a very like addictive personality. It's why I do
oh, you
like
do?
weird
Okay.
things. Um like in food, I've experienced it a few times, like with specific foods. So strange. It's gonna sound weird. You know those like little donuts that like Hostess and like Little Debbie and like Edelman's
Yeah.
make? I
Yeah.
was like absurdly addicted to them in like 2024. I couldn't stop buying them. I was just like, these are so fucking good. And then I eventually was like, dude, I'm buying like a bag of donuts every day.
Yeah.
It's like
It's a lot of
1,500
sugar. I'm
calories.
sure they have
It's
like 30 grams of
way
sugar
too
or
much
something.
sugar. It's
Yeah.
terrible for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eventually I was like, oh, this is bad. Like I shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
And kind of like moved on from it to who knows what other addiction I like created for myself. Usually it's working out. So I'll just be like, oh, I'll be addicted to that instead of whatever else I'm addicted to. Dude, to your point, like the food noise is hilarious because I would just like have to go to the grocery store to buy like diapers or something. And then I'd like see the donuts and I'd be like, oh, they're there. I should buy them. Well, it's really funny, and it's so cheap that it's like there's no economic tax to doing it either.
Right,
Because, like,
exactly.
people just go into the store and they buy this stuff. To your point, it's like it's cheap, it's addictive, and like that's a bad recipe. Like at least with like, I don't know. I actually have no idea how much drugs are, but like I imagine drugs are expensive. So at least if you're a
Yeah,
drug addict, you have to like try a little
right,
bit. If you're a
right.
food addict, you just show up
Just go to the
with
store. Yeah,
with minimal
yeah,
money and you can
exactly.
buy for $10, you could probably buy like $5,000 of like sugary food.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's
So
a
bad.
huge problem. Yeah,
Gross.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we'll figure it out as a society. I think things are getting better. Obesity peaked in 2022 or something like that. It's been going down.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of opinions out there about GLP-1s, but and I know a lot of people on them.
Same.
Honestly, I've talked to a lot of different physicians about it and researchers. Honestly, like I think the trade-off, honestly, it's just better to be on the GLP-1. You know what I mean? If it's like you're gonna stay obese and you're gonna have all these other health issues like heart disease and et cetera, like I think it's just better to be on the GLP-1, right? Like there's trade-offs,
Yeah.
right? But
I
and it's
think there's
not
like some
perfect, but
trade-offs. I also think the trade-offs are I'm saying this because of like some people I know that are on them. I have a couple friends that are on Retreatitide or however the fuck you say it. I don't know how to pronounce it, and I just pronounced it wrong. Maybe it's Retatrutide. I don't know.
I don't even know
Whatever that one
what
is,
that is.
it's the triple agonist. So it's like
Okay.
Ozempic or semaglutide is a single agonist. So it hits just one thing. I don't know what the other two agonists are that it's attacking other than the one that semaglutide messes with. But it allows your metabolism to speed up a little bit, and it also like does the same thing that semaglutide does. It's in the end of its trials, so it'll be like out next year. Uh,
Okay.
and the people that I know that are taking it are not buying it from the pharmacy.
Okay.
One of them is a bodybuilder, and he was like, honestly, it just allows me to like deal with like cutting like in a better way. And I think like for some people, what they need to realize is like the trade-off probably has to do to your point, and like maybe this is good for your brand, really like optimizing the way that you eat. So
Yeah.
like you can't if you're not going to eat as much and like you still need like fiber, protein, you need a certain amount of like healthy fats. Like you have to have those things in your diet. As long as you're being like kind of disciplined about the things you're eating, I think the trade-offs are almost negligible.
Yeah.
Just based on the results I've seen from other people. You probably have to lift weights too. Like if we're being completely honest, like or
Yeah.
your bone density's kind of in
Yeah.
jeopardy.
I mean,
But
I
other
think
than
as
that,
you
like
age,
pretty
you have
great.
to lift weight, to be honest. Like in general, male or
Yes, you
female.
do. It is
Like I'm
100%
gonna
a
be
fact.
38 this year, and it's just like I have to lift weights.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Yeah, dude, you're like almost officially middle aged.
I know. Don't
You're
say
middle
that.
aged next year. You're middle aged
I
next. I am right behind you. I'm 30, I'm
I'll be
32. I'm
32.
32, and what I've realized recently is that middle aged is your 30s. And I think
Yes.
people don't think about it like that. I was hanging out with a group of people. I was like, yeah, guys, but we're middle aged, and they're like, no, and I was like, yeah, like the average life expectancy is like 78, 79. Yeah, we are in fact middle aged. I don't think I will live average. And in fact, in the US, like there's a very big
Yeah.
like gap of like who lives long and who doesn't. And it probably has a lot to do with the food you're eating, to be completely
Yes.
honest. Yeah, man, like it's weird to think like, oh, we're like actually in the middle, the center. And like I think when you get into your 30s, you kind of think like, okay, cool, we're getting started. Dude,
No,
no.
and then it brings up all these questions like, how do you want to spend your time? Like, are you happy with your life? You know, if the answers are no, like what do you want to change? You know?
Yeah. Well, have you ever heard there's this a quote, I have it on a desk over there and I can't remember who said it, but it's that like I hope you live the life you want. And if you don't, I hope you're brave enough to change it. I just botched the quote, guys. But that's
That's a good
essentially what it
one.
is. I think it's at I think it's F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I could be saying that
Okay.
so wrong. I'm gonna Google it, and we're gonna find out. I can see it on my desk, and I can't read that far away. Um,
I love that you look at it every day. That's great.
yeah, it's like a really yeah, it's F. Scott Fitzgerald. Shout out to The Great Gatsby. No, it's a really good quote in my mind, and it's actually been a favorite of Megan's for like since we met, like when we were in college. But
Oh,
it means nothing to you when you're in your early 20s. It means nothing. It's a silly thing that you say. I think once you've lived some life and you're forced to ask yourself the question that you just said, like, hey, are you
yeah.
happy with like what you're doing every day? Then it carries extreme weights. Like I hope you are brave enough to like change to do the thing that actually will make you happy. Because it is so hard to get off the track. I think that's why I'm so proud of like your not only just like your LinkedIn post about it, like you made an announcement, but you were also like, hey, like I'm gonna do something I think is like healthier for like not only like me, but my company. And like this is better. More people should make that choice, or at least actively think about it.
Yeah, and I mean that was my thought process around sharing it. Like I want people to learn from my experience, right? And know that there is another way because there is so much like pressure in the industry like we were talking about. So,
Yeah, dude, I absolutely love that. I love your story. The recent story is amazing. I actively tried to not like ask you a bunch of questions about like your journey because I'm sure that's been like beat down on. But this is a very new conversation. I'm pumped for it. Anyways, Lauren, can you tell everyone where you can buy your cookies? And then if you want to talk about the new brand you're starting, please like take the time now to tell us what
yeah,
it
sure.
is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you can buy my current brand, Love and Shoe. We're on Amazon and then select Costco's. And then we kind of pop up in random places, food service wise, like airports, airlines, etc. And then, yeah, I'm starting a new brand, which is crazy. I'm like, why am I doing this? But I guess I love it so much. It's going to be very different than Love and Chew, but I'm excited and more news to come on that. And, you know, it won't be distributed in grocery retail, at least not for a long time. So,
Love that. And honestly, the more you keep like talking about it, the more I was like, you are like closer to your customer when you like using a lot of the channels that you're using, and that's probably
yeah,
better.
it is true.
Yeah.
You can talk to your customers, yeah, more directly, which is great. We love that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Super cool. Awesome, Lauren. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. I hope people found some value from this conversation. Like Lauren said, if you guys are interested in ordering her cookies, please go to Amazon and check them out. It's Love and Chew. They are good. I have had one before.
Awesome.
Just not
Great.
just not recently. Now I'm gonna have to go buy one. Uh,
I'll
awesome,
send you
Lauren.
some.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.